give an emotional welcome to Aarron Walter.
Thanks so much. You can keep that.
All right. You have one of those?
I have one right here. I couldn't have asked for a better setup. The check is in the mail. Thank you very much. I want to talk to you guys about what I feel is the most important tool that we have in our toolkit to be able to design for delight, to make memorable experiences. The tool that helps us connect with other human beings and see us for who we are. And that is our voice. You know, voice is something that is so unique and special. We all have some special voice, and we have a message to deliver with that, either when we're talking to people interpersonally or when we're making things and putting that out into the world. We have a voice, and we want to get this message across to people. And if we do it really well, if we use our voice really well, we can entertain people, make them feel something really powerful with what we're saying to them. We can incite a revolution, make people see their world in a brand new way, even if they've thought in a different way for their whole life. We can make people laugh. We can educate them, make them think about learning in a different way as well. We can tell a story in a new way that shows us the world in a different way. We can tell a story that says, hey, the times are changing. And that's what we heard just a minute ago in this panel that was talking about, all kinds of interesting, innovative things that are happening. We live in a very interesting time. We are so fortunate to be born at the time that we were, to be part of this big technological change, but it's more than that. From my perspective, for my money, I think that this is a massive cultural change. The way that we talk to each other is very different. And yes, we do have devices that we are very connected with. We're always looking at our phones, and sometimes that impedes our connections with other human beings. But they also connect us with people. They transcend time and space and help us reach more people than we ever have before. And I don't see that as a negative thing. I see that as a privilege, as a beautiful thing, as a way for us to affect humanity in ways that no one that has come before us has ever had the opportunity to do. That's big. It's a really big thing. The thing is that we can make lots of stuff, but if we're not making things that make people feel something, what are we doing? Why are we getting up in the morning? Maya Angelou said that people will forget what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And I feel like this is one of those quotes that I carry with me all the time when I'm thinking about, I'm going to make something new. I want to make something that is meaningful. I want to put my voice into the thing that I'm making here, whether it's pushing pixels, writing copy, or interacting with a colleague. I want to make other people feel something. I want to feel a human connection with other people. And I want to use these devices that we have, this privilege that we have today, to amplify my voice in a way that I never could have if I were born, 50 years beforehand. This guy, Kit Heinrich, who's a really amazing designer. He was one of the principals at Pentagram in New York City. It's a design firm that's known for a lot of amazing work. And he said something that really resonated with me, that this idea of making people feel something. He said that the most effective design has a narrative thread. And narrative design is a way to help our clients tell a story of who they are and what they value. It communicates a value system. And it does it in a way that holds the viewer's interest and makes them care, makes them feel something. We make people feel things by telling stories. Stories are old school, really old school. I mean, like dawn of humanity old school. Stories are the things that we conjure, we create to shape culture, to form religions, to unite people together, also to repel people and push them apart. Stories are so powerful. In fact, I heard that as a theme resonating today. A lot of people thinking about stories and the stories that carry through in the things that we make. Whether it's with something like Jared was talking about with the Kano model, where you're plotting out a story of this experience over time, or if it's a story in some digital experience that you're making. We've been sitting around campfires for a long time, and I don't get a chance to sit around an actual campfire with a lot of people very often. It's very rare. But I do sit around this campfire. I think we're probably all sitting around campfires like this on a regular basis. Places where people come together, their voices are heard, dissent is raised, consensus is reached, probably never. But people hang out in these social spaces and talk to each other and share ideas. New things come out of these spaces. New ideas. So hearing Kit Heinrich talk about narrative and how that's such an important part of communicating a value system, it made me think, okay, here's a guy that has designed brands for a living. He's designed not just the collateral, but he tells stories with design. He tells stories with copy. And he does that for his clients. How does he do that? He learns all about them. Then he shapes these stories. And he helps them become something more, something new. So that realization of stories, narrative and design, that connection, made me think, well, brands, are they not just stories? Are they not just a way to create a story and make people feel something? Well, that's exactly what they are. Let's take this brand, for example. BP, you've heard of it maybe? British Petroleum. It's been a brand that's been in the news, maybe not in the past year or two, but a couple years back. We all were sort of aware of British Petroleum and what they were trying to do. There's an interesting story behind this brand. So the mark, it's called a Helios. You can see, you don't have to be a design expert to see the references here, that it's green and yellow. This Helios is like a sun. It's like a blooming flower. It's like some piece of beauty plucked out of the environment and lovingly placed on display. So British Petroleum, their CEO, approached Ogilvy, another reputable design firm, in 2002, and they said, I'll tell you what, we are a special type of oil company. Not too many people like oil companies. They don't trust us. They don't like our industry. But we want to look at the energy space in a brand new way, and we want people to see us for what we're trying to do and how we're trying to innovate. So we want you to re-envision our brand, British Petroleum, that tells this story of a forward-thinking, environmentally friendly, smart vision of the future for energy. And Ogilvy, they thought about this and, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. We'd love to do that. That's a really difficult challenge. Designers love difficult challenges, and this is a colossal challenge to make an oil company look great. So they said, we'll do it. And they rebranded British Petroleum. They had such control over this. It's not just creating a mark and choosing a logotype, and here are the different things you can and cannot do with your logo. It needs X amount of pixels on either side to be placed into a web page. So they were doing more. They actually were able to rename it, and they said, you guys are no longer British Petroleum. You are Beyond Petroleum. That's your past, but you're moving forward, something bigger. And they loved that. That was great. Really powerful story. And that led to some commercials like this one.
Make the day a little better. Make the way a little better. Say hey a little better. It's the place where I want to be. Say hey. Make the day a little better.
Boy, you talk about delight. How about going to fill up and you got a whistling gas pump? That's pretty awesome. This is some clever stuff. That's a compelling story. This is a different type of gas company that's not like the others. These guys are totally different and unique. I want to go get gas there. Does anybody remember this? Yeah, 2008, Deepwater Horizon. Little thing happened. A giant explosion and a big hemorrhaging of oil, raw crude oil being bled out into the Gulf of Mexico. It was pretty big. It killed 11 people, lots of families that were affected by this. Not only the people that lost their lives, but also the people whose jobs were dependent upon the health of the Gulf of Mexico. My wife's family is from there, so I have a bit of an emotional attachment to this particular story if you can't tell. Here's what it looked like from space. These are 3 states you see here. There's Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and there's a tiny bit of Florida that's just on the edge that was affected as well. But you can see how big this oil slick is. You can see it from space, and it spans a lot of coastline. And if it spans that much coastline, think about how much it affected the Gulf of Mexico. It was 45 million barrels, which each barrel has about 55 gallons in it. So it's a lot. That's an awful lot of oil that's spewed out into the Gulf of Mexico. So these guys, they had a really compelling story. I know if I were the lead designer at Ogilvy, I would just be pulling my hair out and weeping when I saw this story. The live webcams of the oil popping out. They had a story, but the behaviors that were around that from this company were divorced and different. They were separate. So still today, they're pulling out redfish like this one, which has lesions on it, shrimp that have no eyes. So the impact is still being felt today. That was a big deal, very big deal. Another brand that's interesting and has some cool ideas. Vitamin Water, anybody? Vitamin Water fans? Right, you go work out, you're feeling good about yourself. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. I made it to the gym. I did 4 miles on the treadmill. I need a vitamin water to replenish my body and feel better about life. Well, you might as well reach for one of these because it's about the same amount of sugar. Vitamin Water tells a story. That brand tells a story. But what they actually deliver is something different. Another brand that tells a story and delivers something different. Bank of America. You've heard of this. Bank of America is a very patriotic brand that it is the bank of the United States of America for the people, by the people. Their logo is so smart. It's the rolling hills of the Midwest where, America's values come from. It's sort of the plains of wheat and corn you can see right there, and it's the American flag at the same time. Really smart, clever design. But these guys also have some disconnected, continuous behavior here. So during the 2008, the big economic bust, they started to borrow money from the government so they could take care of their balance sheets. Then they wouldn't lend that money to small businesses to get the economy propped back up again. And to add insult to injury, they started charging a $5 service fee when you went to the ATM. So every time you went to the ATM, it's $5, $5, $5. That sucks. People were not very happy about that. So their behavior was totally crushing their brand. And again, I feel sorry for the designers that worked on that. So I would call these stories, stories are powerful if they're used for good, but if they're used to trick or deceive, to create a dishonest situation, people see it, and they tell other people about it. Positive, delightful experiences, people will tell their friends about it, and that will bring more people in than if you marketed and tried to sell yourself on your own. But if you're creating something that is a bait and switch, we say we are this, but we behave this way, that's not going to sell well. People will detect it. So Dieter Rams, he's a designer, an industrial designer that has inspired Johnny Ive and a lot of the work that's being done, industrial design that's happening at Apple. He used to work for Braun, and he tried to evaluate his work and say, how do I know that my work is really good, that this is worthy of the canon of history of design? So he developed a series of tenets that he referenced on a regular basis with himself and his team. One of those tenets said, good design is honest. It's very simple that, you're designing something, there's honesty built into it. The materials you use, the story it tells, all of these pieces that fit together to make people feel something. So design doesn't attempt to manipulate the consumer with promises that can't be kept, right? It just says, this is what we're about, and here's what you have. It's the opposite of what the Jared's Hyatt example early on, where they couldn't deliver on the basic stuff. Just as a contrast here, a different type of story. This is a company called Simple. They are a bank, but they're not really a bank. It's sort of an unbank. And these guys were perfectly timed. They came out at the tail end of the an economic downturn, second depression, whatever you call it. And they launched this really cool website. Basically a digital bank where you can get a card, an ATM card, but there's no physical bank. They've partnered with a bank that has ATMs in lots of different places. But you can put your money here, direct deposit, and it's mobile first. It's got these great, it's got a great web app and a great mobile experience. And they've got so many great things built in, specifically to create an honest experience with a bank, right? Because banks have become adversaries of consumers. Consumers resent them. They use banks because it's a necessity in our culture, but they hate it, and they feel taken advantage of. So just a few examples of some of the things that they do to, these small kindnesses that help you. When you go to sign up, you create a passphrase, not a password. A passphrase is a series of words, human memorable words, that you can easily recall when you try to log in and access very regularly. Because it's easy to remember, people are more likely to actually use it and not use passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. People use those passwords all the time. I hope that's not you. That's a very bad idea. But passphrases actually are more secure than the crazy, you must use 1 capital letter, 1 tilde, only on Tuesday, when on a blue moon. Those sorts of crazy password criteria that you have to fulfill, and you never can. Passphrases are easy to remember, and they are more difficult to crack. When you get into the app, it tells you at the top, the most prominent thing on the page is the safe to spend number. This is the number that says you can spend $340.17 without incurring an overdraft. But the crazy thing is, if you do get an overdraft, they don't charge you. It's okay. Don't worry about it. We don't want you to be stressed out about this. If you think about banks, banks are in the business of making money. When you overdraft, you pay money, usually about 25 or 30 bucks. So therefore, a bank would not be incented to make you have a good user experience. They would be incented the opposite way, to trip you up, hoping that they would get a little bit of extra money out of you. And that sucks, and you have to pay the money, and what do? It's the man. I got to pay the man. But these guys take a totally different approach where they're honest about what you can spend, and they make that very visible. So lots of smart, simple things that they do here. They show you those transactions where they happened. If you needed support, it happens right there. I call these things small kindnesses. And, these things add up after a while. Think about a person that you've known in your life who has done something nice for you. They lay out your PJs. If your spouse lays out your PJs for you, it's like, oh, that's really nice. Thanks for doing that. Or maybe they brought you your favorite cookies on your birthday. Thanks so much. That's really great. And that happens over and over again. That small kindness builds up into a bigger feeling, something more substantial. So these small kindnesses that Simple is building into their model is really smart because it's the sort of thing that encourages word-of-mouth references so they get more customers. Take a look at another company that's doing things well. These guys, Raleigh Denim, out of Raleigh, North Carolina, they make jeans, really good jeans, and they make them in a very special way. In fact, Sarah and Victor, the co-founders of Raleigh Denim, they started making these in their apartment because they just love the idea of jeans and their history and how we've used them in so many different eras throughout the United States history. And they have a little index card that's pinned up to their wall that says, "Make better things in a better way." I love that. It's such a great guiding beacon on the hill to say, this is the direction we're going. This is the check. Are we making a good thing? Are we making a better thing in a better way? Are we taking it in a new direction? And I feel like that is, for all of us here, it's really what pulls us together. It's why we're here. It's why this conference was created, so we can learn to make better things in a better way. We can communicate more effectively. We can tell better stories using that powerful, unique voice that we have. And they go about making better things in a better way by using old tools. Using tools that have been around for a long time that aren't the easiest to fix. They're not the most efficient, but they do things in a traditional way that is not done elsewhere. It's not a pair of jeans you're going to go get at Target. This is a special experience, putting on these jeans in the morning. They don't hire young, cheap labor. They hire wise labor that has experience. Like this woman who's been designing patterns for Levi's for about 35 years. They managed to snag her, hire her, and she started making patterns for them so that their jeans would fit just right. All different body types. And when they make a pair of jeans, they don't make 50,000 pairs of jeans in a week like Levi's might. They make about 200 in a week. This is a pair of jeans that I own, and they are number 44 out of 211. That's the batch. They're hand-stamped. It's like art. It's like you're putting on art on your body. And it feels so great. I pull my legs in there, and I see Sarah and Victor's names, their signatures on the inside of the jeans. That's so great. And I think about the people that made this, the people that created 8 jobs when so many people were being laid off or furloughed, the people that are so passionate about what they're doing that they started making this stuff in their apartment, their tiny little apartment in Raleigh Denim, and then started bringing other passionate people together and finding the right tools to make better things in a better way. That's a killer experience. That just makes me feel so good about myself, that I get to wear such a unique thing, and about the people that are making this, that I am perpetuating that. That's a story about craftsmanship, about making things really well. Also a thing that I feel unites all of us, that we're trying to use this craftsmanship to do something really great. And if we can do that well, if we can be personal about that, people start to see us, not stuff. They see humans, not pixels. It's not human to computer interaction, it's human to human interaction. It's a pretty unique thing in this day and age, when so many people are just, sort of using our medium as a commodity to pump out things as quickly as possible. So trying to make things personal, like Dropbox does. They were mentioned earlier on, but take a look at this page. This is dropbox.com/mobile. This is a hand-drawn illustration that was then scanned in, cut out manually, probably in Photoshop or something, and then animated with CSS3. This was not the easiest way to make a page that said, we have mobile apps that you can download. In fact, this was probably the least efficient way to make this page to communicate that message. But just because it was inefficient to make doesn't mean it's the least powerful. In fact, I think it's the inverse. The care and craftsmanship that went into this page is crystal clear. I mean, you can see it. We can all see it. We don't have to be trained designers to know that this is a special page. It's hand-drawn and special. And even the way that you get your apps onto your phone, text to my phone or email to my device, it makes it a one-tap experience after you fill out your phone number, shows up on your phone, tap, super usable and practical. They have this clever little screen. One day, my son, you too will upgrade to be as big as me. Really? I saw this right after I gave them money. And I think that's a smart time to make a person smile and feel good. I just gave them money, and then they just made me smile. That makes me feel great about giving them money the next time. It's probably not going to motivate me, I need to go give Dropbox 25 bucks. But when I do it, I have this positive experience with this brand that I remember. So let's contrast this. And this is not to denigrate Box.com. I know these people. I like them. I think they do good work. Their audience is different than Dropbox. Dropbox is a very consumer brand meant for a lot of people, whereas Box is meant for very enterprisey situations. Places where, with enterprise software, if it looks difficult and hard to use, that means it's got to be good. So, you look at this and you think, all right, some people took some time on this. They worked really hard. But it takes me a long time to process all this information on the page. I look at all these different things, all these different options that are calling my attention, and I feel like, man, how do I make a decision here? This is difficult. And just the aesthetics, like there's so many different gradients and shadows and things to look at that it's very distracting. Again, contrast that to a Dropbox experience where here's a simple comic showing you how to use Dropbox and what it does. Your computer caught on fire. Don't worry, everything's on Dropbox. I'm fine. Right? So you very quickly get the ideas. There's a low cognitive load. The burden is low on users. When you choose a plan, it's so simple. I'm going to choose free, pro, or teams. And their homepage is so basic. It doesn't get any simpler than this. It's just, watch a video to see what this thing is. And then download Dropbox. So there's small kindnesses all over this in the care and craftsmanship and how these pages are built. And then also that they're not asking a lot of me to try to process. Have you guys seen this movie, Jiro Dreams of Sushi? Yeah, it's on Netflix. That one you can count on tonight. You don't have to waste 2 hours trying to figure out what you're going to watch. I love this film because this guy, he's so ancient and wise and has this passion and love for his craft of making sushi. And he's got this tiny little space in like a subway station. There's no way you can get in for the next 6, 7, 8 months. But what he said in there that really resonated with me was he talked about a French chef that had such an amazing palate. And he said, I wish I was as good as that guy who was younger than him. That guy tastes food really well, and he can taste all these nuances that I can't get. He's trained his palate so well. And I feel like that's the difference between what we've just seen with Box and Dropbox. Box is good. It's a good product. It's a good thing. Dropbox is fantastic. It's a holy shit, I can't believe that's that cool type of product, right? It stands out from the rest. And there's a difference when you start to refine the way that you look at products and how things are made. You start to appreciate what makes this one different than that one. You're like Jiro. You're like the guy that he's describing, this French chef. You're refining your taste buds and understanding the nuances better than others can. And when we can do that, we can show a bit of the human presence, putting ourselves into our work. Something that we often try to expunge. It's like, it's business time, guys. Let's not put our personality into the things that we make. We don't want to have personality in a business situation because it might put people off, it might offend people, they might not get us, then we won't have as many customers, so make sure you don't put your personality in your business. I think it's the exact opposite, though. So does this guy. This is Steven Pinker, Harvard professor, spoken at TED many times, written so many great books, including How the Mind Works. And he points out in this brilliant passage in his book, much of the variation in personality, about 50%, has genetic causes. Do you know what that means? It means all of us, every single one of us that came into this world in the same way, we came with 50% of our personality baked in. Now, 20th century psychology said we were empty vessels. We were blank slates for people to pour ideas into, and they would shape us. That was what our parents and our teachers were supposed to do. But it turns out that that's wrong. 50% of our personality is genetically pre-programmed. Do you have any idea why that would be? Because if you can't make social connections, you cannot survive as a human being. And you make social connections through your personality, your voice, the stories that you tell, how you connect with other people. If you don't have that built in, if you're not able to right away connect with other human beings, you can't build these social circles. You can't help others and have them help you and keep you alive. So why expunge so much of personality from our businesses? I think there are 4 key benefits to personality in the things that we make. The first of which is that it clearly makes you stand out, just as we saw with Dropbox. So here's a company that they staked their investment on their personality. They are a travel company called Hipmunk, hipmunk.com, and they're coming out against Expedia, Orbitz, Travelocity, all these other different travel companies that are out there. Why do we need another one? Well, because they all suck. That's why. We can do better. So they actually got funding because they had a unique approach to booking travel. So I'm just going to try to book a flight right now from Atlanta to LaGuardia. My remote will come alive here. So we're going to make a quick booking. We get this clever little animation. Okay, that's cute and all. But here's what's really amazing about this. If you book travel, you know that it makes you feel awful. It's so stressful. It's a lot of burden on you. They actually sort all the flight options on a timeline because that's the way that our brains work. You don't think of flight options as time in a table. You think of it as a horizon. It's a continuum, right? So smart UI design, nice, small kindness. But they sort the flight options by agony. Which one sucks the least? Which one sucks the most? Right? So price is important. You care about the price, but you care about, does it have Wi-Fi? Do I have to get up at the crack of dawn? Is it expensive? Do I have crazy layovers? Is it a carrier that I actually like? So you can see these with the long layovers down here. There's a long layover in Philadelphia, and that's at the bottom. It's cheap, but it's a terrible, painful flight. What a great idea. That makes them stand out from everybody else. A very competitive market space. So the second benefit of personality and design is that emotion, the way that we feel about things, and our long-term memory are so closely coupled in our brain. The mechanics of it, and it's just sort of hardwired into us. So this guy, Dr. John Medina, wrote another great book worth reading if you're an interface designer, called Brain Rules. And he says that the amygdala is chock full of the neurotransmitter dopamine, and it uses dopamine the way an office assistant uses Post-it notes. He says that when the brain detects an emotionally charged event, the amygdala releases dopamine into the system. I think my batteries are dying here. And because dopamine greatly aids memory and information processing, you could say that the Post-it note reads, remember this. So what he's saying here is that you have an emotionally charged event, and this dopamine is released, and you're going to remember that thing really well. Why is that? The reason why is because when you have really negative experiences, a guy jumped out at me and tried to mug me over here in this sketchy part of this neighborhood. Are you going to remember that? Yeah, because you don't want to go back there. Maybe you had your first kiss. Oh my God, that was so amazing. I was so frightened by it, but I'm curious and I want to try that again. You remember that. It's a positive emotional experience, so you can repeat that. This is what keeps us alive. Long-term memory and emotion are closely coupled, so we can repeat good things and we can avoid negative things. So I've shown you a bunch of examples of smallish startups that have the latitude to try out a lot of different ideas with emotional design. But these guys, General Electric, founded in the late 1800s by Thomas Edison, they're not just light bulbs anymore. They're much bigger. They're a Fortune 5 company. They employ about 250,000 people around the world. So as corporations go, they are so big, they're kind of like the Borg, right? They're so massive, so many people, lots of silos and different things that they make. I can't even tell you all the stuff that they make these days. How does a company like that convey personality, to have some human presence in the things that they're presenting and the stories they're telling? Well, they tell the stories of the individuals, not the company. Individuals like these folks who make jet engines, who are very passionate to get up in the morning and make jet engines because there's some meaning. There's a story from their childhood about flying airplanes, making and flying airplanes. And they pepper their website with all sorts of different stories. It looks almost like a magazine more than a corporate website for a Fortune 5 company. So as you go from page to page, you get these beautiful spreads, all these videos embedded along the way, telling stories of individuals, not a giant Borg corporation, and what they do and why that's meaningful to the way that we live our lives. And you can see the wonder in their eyes of the people that are making this stuff. And if it's staged, maybe it is, maybe I'm a sucker, I don't know. But it doesn't feel staged. It feels like real people. So I feel like if they can do it, we can do that. The third key benefit of personality and design is that it's going to help you find like-minded people. People that think like you, people that share your passion, that are going to be your best customers out there. It's going to help you find your tribe. A topic that this guy, Seth Godin, knows a little bit about. He wrote a book called Tribes. And he said, human beings, we just can't help it, that we just want to belong to something. One of the most powerful of our survival mechanisms is to be part of a tribe. That's why we've got that personality baked into our DNA at our very birth. We want to contribute to and take something from a group of like-minded people. Again, that's what brings us together here today. Like-minded people, passionate about the same things. This is a tribe, very clear tribe of Harley Davidson riders. Are anyone here? Harley riders? Generally not a whole lot at events like this, I found. I will be the first to admit I am not part of this tribe. At the bar, I probably would pass out after my second shot. If a bar fight broke out, I guarantee I'd be on the ground. I probably couldn't hold my own with these guys. So these guys, in forming a tribe, they're not just saying, this is the stuff that we're about. This is who we are. This is our value system. This is the story. Incidentally, not a story that Harley Davidson created themselves. The events and all the fan stuff that happens around it is totally their customers building it, not necessarily Harley Davidson. But what they're doing by forming this tribe is also saying, you don't belong to our tribe. So Aarron Walter, not part of the Harley Davidson tribe. Totally cool with me. I would probably wreck. So tribes are dangerous. They're powerful but dangerous. Here's another tribe. This is a really interesting site for LGBT, trying to advocate a new historic museum about the LGBT movement that would be placed on the mall in Washington, D.C. Big deal. Big shift, big cultural shift happening in our country right now that we're witnessing. And they built this website that tells this story. It's really beautiful. You kind of slide through this, shows different pieces of the organization, shows photos of real people. They're not stock photos. That makes this feel much more human and much more personal. And I love this example. Portland represent, Adidas, or if you're from Europe, Adidas. An interesting way to build your tribe by hiring people. To hire people that are like-minded, that share a passion for design, for product design. So these guys built a website that just shows, here's how we design things and build things. This is our history and how we've influenced sports. This is our history of how we influence pop culture, like hip-hop and Run DMC. It's really cool. And then it proceeds to tell you, here's how you can be part of our tribe. Here's how you can, maybe get a job with us. Lastly, lest you think that these examples here, that you have to have a lot of parallax and jQuery whiz-bang stuff, this is just straight-up HTML. Probably the best job posting I've ever seen in my life. Was put up by Photojojo, a startup out of San Francisco. And it says, wanted, one amazing human being, strong in heart, generous in spirit, daring and unafraid, ready, no, hungry to make bold work. Possessing a whimsical style, keen wit, kind eyes, and a way with CSS and HTML. I love that they don't talk about technical things until halfway through the page. You start scrolling and then you see it. They're trying to find someone for their tribe, someone that shares the same value system. Because you can teach HTML and CSS, but you cannot teach and convince someone of value systems quite as easily. And they ended up hiring a person within 2 days of that posting. I think that's pretty incredible. Passion, such a big deal. It's how we create these delightful experiences. It's the fourth reason why I think personality should be inherent in all of our work that we're doing for our customers and our clients. Passion is contagious. When you see someone that's really passionate about something, you lean in. You want to be part of that. You want to ask more questions. We want that with our relationship with our customers. Like these guys, Beta Brand, clothing store, they put out 5 products a week, which is insane. They design and produce 5 products every week. They make men's and women's clothing, but they're not regular clothing. It's a lot different. So like these pants are called quarter-rounds. You know how when you walk in corduroys, they go zip, 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 right? So quarter rounds are stealthy. You can walk. It's a lot quieter. And they say they've actually tested this in wind tunnels, and it decreases the drag coefficient around your crotch by 74%. Really amazing innovation. This is what I call innovation, folks. What's cool about this is the photos you see up here are actually not photos they took. It's their fans, their people that buy their products, taking pictures of themselves in all these crazy situations, jumping out of planes, on yachts, snowboarding, whatever. And they collect all this stuff, and that sells their brand. They've been in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, all kinds of places. Not because they have some crazy marketing machine, but because they are so passionate about what they do, other people see that and they want to be part of it. So how do we get this into our process? Why don't we have this in here already? It should be baked in. Well, personas, the way that we ask who are they and we learn about our customers, I feel like the piece that we're missing is the question, who are we? We rarely ask that. We're telling a story. We're making this emotional connection with our audience with the story of our brand. But who are we? What are we about? And what do we want to live, wake up for every morning? So we can create that with something called a design persona. A design persona tells a story. This is who we are. This is who we are and who we are not. This is our tribe. This is the type of company that we want to be. And when we hire people, when we write those beautiful job postings like Photojojo, we know exactly how to write them because we know who it is that we are and who would be the right fit for us. So this is a design persona that I made for MailChimp way back, a long time ago. The brand was sort of already taking shape, and I was just trying to solidify it because we were hiring new people. It starts with an overview that gives you the opportunity to say, our brand is like this person. So for us, we didn't need to say it's a person because we have Freddie von Chimpenheimer IV. I'm not saying that you should have a mascot. Mascots, if every brand had a mascot, it would get really tired. We already had this. This is who we are already. I've seen people make design personas that had Michael Knight, and you immediately know, okay, Michael Knight is cool, but not whatever. So you start to have these traits around this person. Ask yourself, if your brand were a person, who would it be? That makes conversations about your brand and what's inbounds and out of bounds a lot easier. So a quick overview that describes your brand, who you are and what this person is and what it's about. This is the heart of it, though. Brand traits. We are this, but we are not. We are not this. It's drawing a circle and saying, here's what's inbounds and what's out of bounds. For MailChimp, we say, we're fun but not childish, funny but not goofy, powerful but not complicated, hip but not alienating, easy but not complicated, easy but not simplistic, trustworthy but not stodgy, informal but not sloppy. This is our Bible. This is the thing that we remember all the time. It doesn't say do this or do that, but when we write a tweet, a blog post, whatever it is, we know this is inbounds and this is out of bounds. It's a very handy guide, especially as you start to add more people. You can plot personality on an X and Y axis to say unfriendly, friendly, dominant, submissive. What's an example of unfriendly? Harley Davidson, right? Badass. It's not gentle and fluffy. Friendly, that would be Freddie on the other side. That's where I would sit. Dominant, submissive. What's an example of submissive? Ask Jeeves. It's kind of passive. Or Siri. I want to get out of your way and I want to help you. Describing the voice. This is the voice of our brand, and giving some examples. MailChimp uses contractions like don't instead of do not because that's how real humans speak. It would say MailChimp uses sound effects like to make it sound like you're thinking hard, or bleck, that's awful, to make it sound like you empathize. Or is it sympathize? Bah, too lazy to Google it. You get the gist. Right? So in writing the criteria of this is how we write, we're trying out those lessons at the same time. You can have copy examples in a design persona that says, this is an example of how we'd use things in different ways, in different situations. More about that in a second. And ultimately you can conclude with ideas for a visual lexicon, why you'd use certain color or typography to communicate the personality of your brand, and eventually engagement methods of how you create these delightful moments. What we found in doing that, in that exercise, was that voice was very clear for us as a starting point, but that document didn't really get it across well enough for us. We started to hire a lot more people blogging, and it was difficult to keep that reined in so we didn't, misstep. And it's not that we're trying to be brand Nazis about it. We want, individual voices to be heard there, but we also want to make sure that all of that is part of the culture of MailChimp, and we don't confuse that message. So our content strategist, Kate Kiefer-Lee, had this really interesting observation that, we've got this consistent voice. We sound the same way all the time, but we really need to vary our tone in different situations. So you wouldn't tell a joke at a funeral, probably, depending on the type of funeral it is. And you wouldn't, when the servers go down, not a good time to make a joke. It's not a fun experience. You need to reassure and make people feel good. You can preserve your voice, but shift your tone for that situation. So to help us think through this a bit more, we created a website called voiceandtone.com. It's public. You can go see this if you're interested. And it's a public guide. What I love about this is when new people are hired, we can just IM this to them. I can email it and say, hey, here's voiceandtone.com. This is the way we write. If you're writing a blog post, this is worth looking at. And this covers everything from jokes that Freddie might crack in the app, to a blog post, to knowledge-based articles, guides, down to failure messages. And if you notice there's a color change that's happening, that relates to the emotion of the person. Blue starts to be a little bit more neutral. Green is very positive. You get further down, and the colors get warmer, where emotions get heated. They're upset. They've been shut down for a particular reason. They broke some terms of service or something like that, or the server went down. So this gives examples of the copy we might write, how people are feeling, what's going in their head, and then what we might say in response. So it's voiceandtone.com that's helped us figure out how we're talking to our audience. So we're ending the day here. It's been an amazing conference, a couple days, workshops, and then a lot of great ideas here. And the thing that I want you to know is that some conferences you go to, and there's a formula. This is how you write the code. This is how you do this particular thing. This is the process. That's not what's happening here today, guys. I think you probably already picked up on that. Personality, there's no formula to creating personality. Crafting voice, there's not really a formula to that. It is more of a reflective experience. It's about thinking about who are we, asking who are we as a group, and how are we going to communicate. What are we trying to make? Who are we trying to connect with? But if there's anything that's just these guides that you can take with you, take back for when you go back to work on Monday, is that voice is so elemental to humanity. And when we make things, digital things and physical things, we're making things for big audiences. We need to keep this in the back of our mind, that our voice is a powerful tool, our most powerful tool. And keep in mind that it's with our unique voice that we craft stories that make people feel things that they will remember for a long time. The most effective design is a narrative thread. It's the stories that we craft. And the craftsmanship, the careful way that we make things, people will notice that. They remember that. And they definitely appreciate that moment of delight. These guys, Victor and Sarah, make better things in a better way. That's what I want to do every day when I wake up. I want to make better things in a better way for the rest of my days, as long as I'm alive. I want to do something really remarkable. I want to use all these things to do something remarkable that people will remember. This guy, Seth Godin, last thing I want to leave you with, he said, if you're remarkable, it's likely that some people won't like you. That sounds a little bit scary. But that's part of the definition of being remarkable. Nobody gets unanimous praise, ever. Ever. So I'm asking you to put yourself out there, to try something a little bit different. Seth Godin, he says, the best the timid can hope for is to be unnoticed. Criticism comes to those who stand out. That's a great place to be standing out. Think about who you are. Who is the real you? You as an individual, what you want to make, how you want to tell that story. And as a company, who are you and what are you trying to tell? Who are you trying to connect with? If you can get to the bottom of those series of questions, you can find not just the real you, but I think you can find the best you, better you, that's going to make your work much more successful. Thanks so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate it.